I want to pick my story up about when my parents were married in Lepanto and their lives there. Daddy was the last one of the four bachelors to marry. And I know Mother always told me that once they got married, he told her he never again wanted another sandwich or casserole. He didn't really stick to that, but we grew up. We never had hamburgers in our house. We had 3 meals a day. Of course, my mother was fortunate that she had a cook. She didn't at the beginning, of course. In the beginning, Daddy was farming on one side, and on the other side, he worked, I guess, with the crop. Probably in the wintertime, I'm not sure. In Porter's grocery store, it was called Porter's Mercantile. And of course, that's an era that I don't remember. I was too young, I guess. But eventually, they built a house and moved in. And I don't remember moving there, but I was maybe 4 or 5. And Mother had full-time help. She had a wonderful black woman that I've talked about already named Annie Mae. And I can remember this so vividly. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Annie Mae would make Spud and I come in. We would have to take a bath, put on starched, clean clothes, so we would look pretty when our daddy came home. I can remember all that. We would say, oh, we gotta go get scrubbed, because we wanted to play outside in the yard, and we had a great time. Now, Alan and Hetty Mae lived around the corner from my parents, and they had 3 daughters. They had Martha Mae, Virginia, and Jeanette, who were all, I guess Jeanette was maybe 5 or 6 years older than me, and Mott was probably more than that. But anyway, at the time that Spud started school first, because he was a year ahead of me, and he was not a healthy child, and he cried every day, and every time they got out for recess, he ran home because he wanted his titter. That's what he called me, was titter. So after, they just couldn't keep him in school, and he had all these ear problems, so they just held him out, and then he and I started the first grade again, together. I say again, it was again for him, I was not. We sat in the same seat through the 6th grade. We had wonderful classmates. I can remember Faye Blackwood, Andy Pressgrove, Annette Portis, our cousin Hortense Easton, and our cousin Mary Sue was a year behind us. Then we had 2 years ahead of us, our cousin Clyde, we all call him, quote, Cotton Easton. And of course we had Mott, who with Martha Mae we call Mott, with Virginia, and Bitsy was who Jeanette was. So that was sort of an extended family that we were all together. And then Uncle Carey and Aunt Vernon, and they had 5 children. They're the ones, though, who left and went to Arizona. But we had a lot of family time together. I can remember they would rent the Legion Hut, the old Legion Hut there in Lepanto, and Mother and Aunt Hattie Mae and Aunt Sue, and I guess all the cooks, because all of them had cooks, would cook, and we would go and have a family reunion, and they would dance, we would play cards, we would eat, and have a big fire in the fireplace. I mean, it was just a wonderful time, really, The men worked very hard, The women all stayed at home. None of them ever had a job in any way. But they took care of their family, Eventually, my daddy became very successful. I don't ever remember a time when he was not on the city council. He was always a member. He farmed several thousand acres of land. He owned the Ford Motor Company. He owned the ice company, and they were still delivering ice back in those days. It was a pretty profitable business, I think. He had a dairy that delivered milk to houses. And, I mean, he had a restaurant. Eventually, had a restaurant. He had a beauty shop. He had rental houses. He became very, very prosperous, and a lot of that was the result of the war. But when Spud and I started the first grade, there was no cafeteria at the school, so that meant we lived about a mile, even though we were in the city limits. We were on the very edge of the limits to get to school. So someone would have to take us and then come back and get us at lunchtime, bring us home, feed us, and take us back again, and then come back and get us again. Well, Daddy solved that problem real quick. He bought a brand new Model T Ford, and he taught Mott how to drive. So every morning, Mott, Virginia, and Bitsy would walk around the corner to our house. We would get in the Model T. She would drive us all to school, because it was all in one building, you see. We'd stay till lunchtime, drive home for lunch. Mott would come back and pick us up. We'd go back to school, and then Mott would bring us home when school was out and park the Model T in our driveway. But it was so normal then. You see what I'm saying? I know it sounds abnormal now, but it wasn't. It was a very normal thing. And I remember during the war, of course, having the Ford dealership, my daddy could get tires, which were very, very pricey and very, very rare to find. And to get a new car was almost unthinkable. However, he did buy my mother a brand new Buick. Now, I don't know how he got his hands on it, but it had good tires, brand new tires on it. And I remember one time that we were driving, mother was driving her new car, and Spud and I were in the back seat. And we were somewhere between Lepanto and Mark Tree. I don't remember why we were. She was obviously going somewhere, and we were going with her. And Spud and I started bickering, and she kept telling us to be quiet. And finally, she leaned back and slapped at us. She missed us both, of course, but she went in the ditch. The first thing she said was, "You are not to tell your daddy about this. You cannot tell your daddy. Do you hear me? Just absolutely not." And she vanished. I don't know if someone got us out. I don't remember. Well, of course, the minute Daddy walked in the door, "Daddy, guess what Mama did?" We told on her right away. And he always called her Beck. And he said, "Beck, I told you, you can't do that in a car. You're going to kill yourself and our children, you know." But anyway, it was just one of those funny things that I remember happening. But it was growing up in Lepanto was fine. It was a happy experience for all of us. We had lots of friends, and we roamed the streets, you know, because it was safe. Everybody would ride our bicycle. And by the way you would get grounded then is your bicycle was taken from you. You know, you had to stay in the yard. You couldn't get out. Well, we lived on bicycles, and across the street, Daddy owned some land, and he built another house, which was our permanent home, which was the very nice home that I grew up in. And then across from that, he built another big house and moved my grandparents in there, James and Velma Vance. And out behind that, he had a barn, and they had a big vegetable garden, and there was also an orchard with lots of fruit in it. And I remember that year Spud and I got horses for Christmas. And we wanted horses with saddles, and you know, the whole we were the only kids in that area that had them at that time. And of course, all of our friends would come and we would ride. Well, actually, first Spud got a horse and I got a Shetland pony, actually. And I hadn't had the pony any time until he drugged me under a branch. He didn't like to be ridden, and the pony disappeared, and all of a sudden I had a gaited walking horse. But I remember that this branch hit me right about here, and I thought I was dead. I was about 9 maybe, something like that. I was a little kid, you know. But and Spud had a quarter horse, and he was much better on the horse than I was. I named my horse Tony. I remember doing that. And of course, our job was we were supposed to go out every afternoon and feed and cur the horses. And, you know, that lasted probably a month. Granddaddy Vance took it over after that. You know, occasionally we would do it. But we did ride a lot. And then slowly our other friends, I know Daddy got a horse. Several of our other friends got horses, and we would then ride, you know, on the horses. So that was a lot of fun. But I remember the fishing trips with all the Easons. They would load all the kids up, and everybody's maid. Annie Mae, whoever, you know, and we would all go down to Bates full of Sardis. And back then it was motels, so they would check into motels and leave us, and I don't know where they went. I guess they went fishing or dancing, who knows what they did. A partying, they were gone a long time, each night they were having fun, and left us with the maids. But Mott, being the oldest of all of us, was the one who could sort of discipline us. You do this, I'm going to tell your mother, you know, whatever. But I can remember all those good times. It was a lot of fun. And before, I'm going to say that before my father moved my grandparents, the Richardson, the Eastons right across, the Vances across the street from us, they had lived in Etowah. And I can remember on Sundays, we went out to Etowah to their house. They had a big old wooden house, grandma house, you know, like you think of. And there was a big dinner every Sunday. And Aunt Dee and Uncle Brian would be there. I mean, Uncle Red when he came home from the Navy, Uncle Harvey and Aunt Vita. I mean, everybody in the family came, and everybody brought their children, and we would play in the yard. We had such a good time. It was a lot of fun. You know, I just remember all that. So I'll stop it right there and then pick up again later.